Thanks for joining us. A Toronto man is making it his personal mission to get more people housing that's warm, safe, and off the streets. This weekend was move-in day for one person getting their new tiny home. Nama Weingarten has more on the project and how other regions across the GTA are building their own tiny homes.
This right here is my desk.
Tara Soller spent 3 years on the street before becoming the first person to move into one of these tiny homes just over a month ago.
I've slept in outdoor stairwells, like in sleeping bags. You know what I mean? It's been hard.
She tells us she burned down 2 tents in the past, trying to keep warm by starting fires using hand sanitizer. But her way out of the cold didn't come from a shelter or the city. It was wheeled in by a guy named Ryan Donay, who says the tiny homes should have never been built in the first place.
It's so easy and so cheap to house people. We just don't want to do it. I don't know why we don't want to, but we could house people.
He started building the tiny homes this summer, taking inspiration from Khalil Seavright, who built wooden shelters during the pandemic until the city removed them, claiming they were a fire hazard. But Donay tells us these tiny homes have features built in, with the hopes to avoid city backlash.
You can move them. They're very, very, very mobile. There is a lot of safety features built in. There's a fire extinguisher. There is a smoke and carbon monoxide detector. And I think the biggest safety feature is it has heat. If you don't have heat, you create heat with fire.
City workers dropped by as we were visiting and left without raising alarms. Donay gave us a tour.
All right, so let me show you around inside a little bit. Under the bed, you got lots of storage here.
The small unit comes with the basics, like a bed, storage space, and a sink. It has a fan for the summer, heating for the winter, and a lockable door.
I can lock my door. I sleep every night. You know, I never had clothes that I got to wear twice. I got to do my laundry the other day and wear my clothes the second time. So those are big things, you know. I felt grateful but guilty that I have heat and all these people around me don't, and I can't fit everybody in here.
Donay built 3 tiny homes so far, spending $5,000 of his own money on the first prototype. The rest comes from private donations, and the city hasn't chipped in yet.
I hope to have a partnership where they can supply some land and maybe supply some funding. But mainly supply some land because we need to get our parks back.
The City of Toronto committed to creating over 1,000 modular homes, with 216 built so far. Different municipalities across Ontario are also giving tiny shelters a try as a way to address the housing crisis. Peterborough started a modular housing community filled with cabins in the site of a former parking lot. Waterloo also has a tiny home shelter run by the region that opened last year. Meanwhile, Hamilton is expected to open the city's first outdoor shelter filled with tiny homes next month, after some delays. But as much as tiny homes can help the housing crisis, Soller tells us they're not the solution.
It's really just a temporary until we get into permanent housing, you know, because shelters is not permanent.
When I asked Ryan what his goal is, he said it's not to build a specific number of these tiny homes. It's for all these tents to go, and for people to have a warm place to stay at night. But in the meantime, his next tiny home for the next resident is already under construction. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
A motorcyclist is dead after a crash in Whitchurch, Stouffville early this morning. It happened near 9th Line and Hoover Park Drive around 3 a.m. Police say a motorcycle and SUV somehow rammed into each other. The victim, a 21-year-old man, was taken to hospital where he later died. The driver of the SUV remained on scene. Roads in the area have since reopened after being closed for about 9 hours while police investigated. If you happen to witness the crash, officers want to hear from you. A GTA college is responding this evening to allegations from the Indian government that Canadian colleges and universities could be involved in smuggling Indian nationals across the Canada-US border. Sheridan College, which has campuses in Oakville, Brampton, and Mississauga, calls the allegations deeply disturbing. India's enforcement director says it uncovered incriminating evidence involving Canadian schools and so-called entities in Mumbai. The investigation began after 4 members of an Indian family froze to death while trying to cross from Manitoba into the U.S. in January 2022. The allegations come amid serious tensions between Canada and India. For its part, Sheridan adds this: it, along with the other 23 public colleges in Ontario, process international student admission applications using a stringent framework that includes oversight and monitoring of agents. adding if it uncovers any information that an agency they work with has engaged in any such activities, they will immediately cut ties with them. In Ottawa, Parliament may be in the midst of its 6-week winter break, but the Conservatives aren't slowing down efforts to force an election, and soon all opposition parties now say they are ready to topple the Liberal government. Tyreek Reid is tracking the latest for us.
It's pretty clear to me that Justin Trudeau no longer has that confidence, and he's no longer seen to have that confidence from outside the country.
Canadians will be casting ballots in the federal election in the new year. It's just a matter of when. Since September, the Liberals have overcome 3 non-confidence votes put forward by the Conservatives, but survived with help from the NDPs. But the party's leader says that help is now gone. In a letter posted to social media, the chair of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts says the committee will consider a motion of non-confidence on January 7th. If that passes, MPs could begin debating a non-confidence motion on January 30th. And if the NDP sticks to their word, an early election could be on the horizon.
They have a choice between being somebody who is perceived as siding with the Trudeau Liberals or potentially being against them. And so increasingly, I think that, yes, I do believe that the NDP is likely to vote for a motion of non-confidence.
It's a result that could mean the beginning of the end of a Liberal government.
The election took place today, and Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister. Federal Liberals would be headed to a near wipeout. These are very grim, very bad numbers.
But some experts say there are ways for the party to buy itself more time.
There could be a shift in leadership, and I think, frankly, if there's a shift in leadership, that might change the position, at least in the short term, of one or more of the opposition parties. But if it does look like it's headed for a vote of confidence, of course, the government does have the option of proroguing Parliament.
And while it may be a lot to take in, Canadians say they're ready to head to the polls.
I think we do need a change from Trudeau at this point.
I think a lot of people have lost a lot of faith in him, so hopefully, we see a turn of the tides and new leadership stepping up to really inspire Canadians to, change the landscape of this country.
If a non-confidence vote is successful, an election will take place in the spring. Tyreek Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
A big upset at the World Junior Hockey Championships in Ottawa last night. What was expected to be an easy win for Team Canada against Latvia turned out to be a devastating shootout loss.
Eric Smateko moves it and shoots, scores! And Latvia has shocked Canada, taking down the host country 3-2 in a shootout. Their first ever win against Canada at the World Junior Hockey Championship.
Yeah, you heard it. Not only was that Latvia's first win against Canada, it was only their 3rd win in the country's history in the preliminary round. Last year, Canada blanked the Latvians 10-0 in prelim action. The shootout went 8 rounds before Latvia scored, securing a 3-2 victory. Goaltender Leonard Svelberg made 54 saves, earning him Player of the Game. Sophia joining us for our first look at the forecast. Definitely didn't feel like winter out there. There was sunshine, there was warm temps, and now we're talking about this rainfall warning for tomorrow.
And Mother Nature trying to get everything in before we turn the calendar page to 2025. This is going to be a doozy tomorrow, though. Here's a look at the rainfall warnings and the special weather statements. 30 to 40 millimeters is expected. It is going to pour all day. We're talking about bands of heavy rain starting late morning, going right into the overnight period. Remember, folks, the ground is mostly frozen. It has a reduced ability to absorb all this water. Pooling, ponding, flooding is possible. Localized flooding, rather. Stay away from any low-lying waterways. We actually could be on tap for one of our rainiest December days ever if we crack sort of the 40 to 48 millimeter mark, certainly in the top 5 when it comes to this wild and mild weather. You mentioned the sunshine, the warm temperatures. It certainly felt like March today. It still does. We're still hanging on to the double digits all throughout parts of southern and southwestern Ontario. The mild temperatures continue, but we'll talk more in the long range about what's happening with this system that is barreling towards us. It's actually ongoing right now with the potent cold front in the Gulf states south of the border, where a ton of tornado warnings are at stake right now. All of that potent storm energy and tons of Gulf moisture will be barreling towards us throughout much of your Sunday. We will detail the timing for you and talk about the cold that will be in behind it, Shannon.
Okay, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Turning to some international news next, the Kremlin making a rare apology over the Azerbaijan Airlines crash that killed 38 people in Russian airspace on Christmas Day. But as Ithel Musa shows us, despite apologizing, Russia stopped short of taking the blame.
In Azerbaijan's capital, Baku, a funeral for a 13-year-old boy who died in Wednesday's plane crash that killed 37 others. 29 survived, yet today, the loss is still painfully difficult for some to accept. Just look at the damage. How many people's homes were filled with mourning just before the new year? Can such a thing happen, asks this woman. I believe that Russia must apologize to the people of Azerbaijan and provide compensation to the deceased and the survivors, says this man. Russia's President Vladimir Putin did apologize on Saturday to Azerbaijan's president for what he called a tragic incident in Russian airspace. He stopped short, however, of admitting responsibility for the deadly crash. It comes amid mounting allegations the plane was shot down by Russian air defenses, attempting to deflect Ukrainian drone strikes. I myself was injured in my arm, says this flight attendant of the crashed plane. One passenger was also injured in the leg. There were people who panicked, and we tried to calm them down. The Kremlin says its air defense systems were firing near Grozny airport as the plane repeatedly tried to land. But it did not explicitly say the plane was hit by Russia. The flight was en route from Azerbaijan's capital to Grozny in southern Russia, but it diverted to Kazakhstan, where it crashed and burst into flames. Now, while officials from Russia, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan continue to investigate the crash, the families of the victims continue to mourn their passing. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Two people in Windsor, Essex have sparked an unexpected friendship, and they owe it all to a green bench. As Jennifer LaGrassa shows us, it's part of a program that encourages seniors to share their wisdom with young people.
One cool grandma.
Oh, thank you. And you're one cool grandson.
Words Cecile Wilkinson has always wanted to hear. But at 83, she didn't think she'd ever become a grandmother. Until suddenly, she was.
It was one day, and we were like, I was like, I want to get a book at the library. So I go to the library, and we're like, oh, there's a green bench here.
It was a green bench at the library in Tecumseh. Sitting on it was Wilkinson. She lives at the village of Aspen Lake in Windsor, a seniors' home run by Schlegel Villages. The company started the Green Bench initiative with a simple goal: give seniors the chance to share their wisdom with others.
I just figured that was to be it, just sitting on the bench, but then they introduced me to Matthew. I didn't expect all this.
We had similar interests. She likes Disney, and I also love Disney. Really, just I found your life really interesting.
I really enjoyed his company. I'm surprised that anybody would take interest in me. You know. Oh, thank you.
Matthew and Wilkinson met in June, and the visits continue. They aren't related, but the pair laugh and talk like they've known each other forever. This friendship coming along at just the right time.
It's going to be a year that I lost my husband, and it's just a little bit sad, but I know I'm going to try to be happy for him. He would want me to be happy.
And his memory lives on in the stories she shares with Matthew.
I'm learning about, how she lived her life and how it's kind of similar how I'm trying to live my life. She always lived her life with kindness, and I just kind of want to do the same thing.
Schlegel Villages donated a green bench to Essex County Library, and right now it's here at the LaSalle branch, but it's going to be moving to different locations, inviting you to pause and connect, just like Wilkinson and Matthew did.
We really need to celebrate our seniors and what they have to offer. A vibrant community needs its elders, and so we need to be having conversations with them and having that opportunity to build relationships between generations.
Other people who might see this green bench out in the community, what's your advice to them?
I feel like if there's someone you can connect to, and if there's someone around that you want to talk to, I feel like you should do it, because it might not be anything, but you don't know. It could be some start of a great friendship, or it could be just something really interesting that impacts your life in a way you never thought it would.
Just having him in my life, it's changed me. I feel a lot better that somebody wants to be with me.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Kwanzaa celebrations are underway in Toronto's Little Jamaica neighborhood. A full afternoon and evening of events have been planned, starting with an arts and craft market.
We have different vendors who are all based in the community who will be vending and trying to make us understand that we're stronger when we work together to make things happen.
Live performances, including ancestral drumming and spoken word, will carry the celebration into the night. The holiday honoring African heritage and culture was founded in the U.S. back in 1966. Here in Canada, we officially began marking it in 1993. Kwanzaa celebrations continue into the new year. Christmas has come and gone, and people are now looking to kick that Douglas fir to the curb. The City of Toronto is giving people tips to dispose of their trees properly, making sure it's collected on garbage day.
What we ask them to do is remove any sort of decorations, so ornaments, tinsel, and Christmas lights, to make sure it's free of all those items, and they can be placed at their curb for collection. City of Toronto does offer Christmas tree collection services through the month of January.
People can also bring their trees to city drop-off depots for free. Collected trees will be broken up into mulch and brought to a composting facility. Here's a question. Have you ever gotten a gift during the holidays that was just straight up bad? If so, you've probably wondered, what am I going to do with this? Well, there is a place that actually celebrates those crummy presents from the awkward, the useless, and the never wanted. Take a look.
This painting over here was given to someone for his 50th birthday because he wears a lot of yellow. So this friend imagined he would like this very yellow painting. It looks like it has blood spilled all over it. So, there's this. This was a wedding gift for a couple the gift came from Colombia, and it's made out of a horse's hoof. And I don't think they can manage to part with it. A bad gift is different for everyone. It's a subjective thing. Someone's bad gift is another person's gem. So that's why for our Museum of Bad Gifts, we have people do a little write-up of why the gift for them is so bad.
I think that there are bad gifts that are maybe not full of thought, perhaps, but then there's also bad gifts that are so bad that they're good. And I think those are the ones that I personally enjoy the most.
When I was really little, I wrote a letter to Santa and I asked for like a game console. I asked for a PlayStation. And I didn't get the PlayStation, but I got about like 5 games for the PlayStation. So I just had a bunch of discs in my room that I couldn't do anything with. I was pretty bummed out about it. I think I cried. I think I went upstairs and cried.
It was a very strange plaster sculpture of a Cabbage Patch doll that was very creepy but also cute. And it was given to me because the person thought I would enjoy that weird juxtaposition of creepy, cute, horrifying. I thought it was pretty funny, and I was like, well, I'm gonna keep it in my collection and on my shelf. So
certain people who submit things said to me, oh, it's okay that this is in the show. The person who gave it to me is dead. So there's that. But, it's all in good fun. Some people have donated these bad gifts to the museum, and we're auctioning those off with proceeds going to the Daily Bread Food Bank. So their bad gift might have a nice home and a nice outcome.
Happy ending.
Yes, happy ending.
A bad gift becomes art, becomes a really fun laugh. Oh my gosh, that was hilarious.
Fantastic idea for a museum.
Yes. I have some donations.
I was going to say, I'm writing down the website and the email address right now. I am the queen of keeping all of the bad art projects from the kids and hoarding them for way too long.
Yeah.
Those aren't bad gifts, but there gets a point where they've got to meet the recycling bin at some point. The weather was a beautiful gift today, unless you really like the cold winter feel. It felt like March today. Maybe that was a gift. It's going to be just as mild tomorrow, but a little bit wilder. We hit the 12-13 degree mark for some of you, along with the Texas low this morning. It dropped a bit of rain earlier in the day. It's still dropping a little bit of icing into the Cornwall area, but really it was just the appetizer course. The real rainy, messy system comes tomorrow. We talked about it a little earlier in the show. Here's where it all starts, though, right? Its birth is down in the Gulf states, a really potent cold front, a ton of tornado warnings ongoing as we speak in parts of Baton Rouge, New Orleans, all the way up to Jackson, Alabama as well. And then the storm track picks up that system on this big, strong conveyor belt and brings it right to us throughout all of your Sunday. Let's break out the timing for you now. Late morning in parts of the GTA, you should be fairly dry until late morning, rather. And then late morning, that heavy rain really starts. It's an all-day thing. Pushes of heavy rain, maybe even a little bit of convection. It pushes up to the Georgian shores and up to the Nickel Belt into Sunday evening. This time of year, you shouldn't be getting rain in the Nickel Belt. That's how mild this southerly Gulf flow is. Temperatures will be anywhere from 5 to 15 degrees above normal again. A little bit of cooler air into Monday afternoon. Still seeing the rain from this system, but you could have a little bit of mixing in some of the typical suspect higher elevation areas. Colder air in behind will really be the story Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday. After all the rain on Sunday, let's talk a little bit about the first few days of 2025. That active storm track is further to the south, which means we will get the snowy northern end of any systems that come in. Not only could New Year's Day maybe see a snowy system, but we could also see some days of lake effect in behind. You want the snow for Christmas, but then you don't really want it as you head into January, along with all of the cold that's coming, Shannon.
Inevitable, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Murphy's Law.
We got to take it. Okay, thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome.
That's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon.